Oh, damn! You can edit this whole thing. I'm turning this off. Dude, I appreciate the time. Brian Hawkins, my fellow alumni from the Fourth Monkey and Anthology for Awareness. Man, I don't know if you could believe it, but that was 2017 when we did that.
No way.
Crazy, right? I just had to look it up.
2017.
Yeah, I have some copies here.
Man,
I had to look at the copyright at the bottom of the book, and it was 2018. That's when we printed it. But I just went on
hmm
my phone to look at the Kickstarter, and man, we did that back in 2017.
that's insane. Like 4 years just gone.
Yeah.
Wow.
No,
Time,
that's
man.
nuts.
Yeah, yeah.
Time's
Time.
a tricky thing,
We
man. You've been
we
hustling out.
live it, but it just doesn't feel like we live it. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple kids. I know you have a couple kids, and that, we
Right?
try to hold on to time. Time is a precious commodity, I
Yes,
think,
it
that,
is.
a lot of people don't
Yeah.
appreciate. But I try
No,
to.
absolutely.
I actually had
Yeah.
Madeline Holly Rosing on the other day, another fellow Fourth Monkey alumni. So I'm gonna do my best to get everybody on here, see what everyone's been up to,
Okay, that's cool. That's real cool, man.
dude. So I appreciate it, man. So speaking of the Fourth Monkey, I was thinking about it before, and I remember you and Chris Harris, you guys had probably one of the most emotional but also well done stories in that book. Do you? It's been a while, like we just talked about. Do you remember even writing that?
No going back. Absolutely. That you hit the nail on the head. It was really emotional, and it stemmed from a friend of his committed suicide. And when we were talking about what to write about, that came up, and I was like, okay, so let's build from there. And we created this time travel story based around the idea of suicide. Um, and I mean, it was hard to write for sure. It was one of those emotional things, and it's yeah, I
Yeah, that
definitely remember writing that.
I bet. No, I bet that's a touchy subject, obviously, and you have to
Mhm.
handle it well. And I think you guys handle it very well. You mixed in a bit of sci-fi, right? The time travel, a person having to feel that deep loss and try and go back and see what they could have done differently to help a person.
Right,
And yeah,
right.
you guys did a great job on that.
Oh, thank you for that, man. I was excited to be invited in, man. Like it was so many great stories, and I love when like the stories are meaningful and like there's a certain like social theme, because I feel like it speaks directly to like who we are and where we're at, and the transcendence of just being human. It's across the board. That's why Shakespeare is still so relevant, right? Because he wrote about the human condition, and it hasn't changed at all.
Yeah, it
Um,
tests it tests the sands of time, right? Right, something
Absolutely.
everyone's experienced back then and now. But yeah,
Yep.
that was a fun one. It ended up being a big learning experience for myself. Ending up co-editing and I guess
Mhm.
publishing the whole thing. So that was I got into some deep waters. But at the end, it was a master class on how to work with 30 different creators, how to manage
Oh
it
yeah,
all.
I
It was
can imagine.
chaotic, excuse me, but
Yeah.
it was a wonderful learning experience. So I definitely took something away with it. And now, dude, congratulations because you're writing Van Helsing for
Thank you.
Zenescope. How do you approach writing, I guess, an existing character?
Um,
Do you approach it
man. So
differently?
well, so first, like, okay, so with Van Helsing, I mean, I'll be honest. I truly felt a lot of weight, with like because I know with Van Helsing, she's a flagship character for Zenoscope. So I felt the pressure. I felt the weight of who she is as a character. And so the great thing was that I'm like before being a writer for Zenoscope, like I'm definitely a fan. Like I like that fairy tale universe, and so I had already read a lot of their stuff, and I'm jumping around within their universe anyway. So I just went back and reread, you know, some of the stories I had already read, and then I even dove into some of the new ones just to really, I mean, one when you're reading from a fan perspective is one thing, but then when you're reading from like, okay, I need to really catch her voice, the mood, the feeling of her environment and what she deals with, like who she is. So I did my research, and um, the first and foremost thing is to honor like who and what she is in her universe and in their company. And then I tried to figure out what's the next step. What's the layer that needs to be peeled off that maybe I can contribute to. And basically, with who she is, who she's been, I just found in the continuity of her story, like this layer that I could peel back, a personal layer where she's at a certain place in her life, and I just tried to speak to that while still um, making sure she's everything that she's always been.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's cool. So I could picture that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So you gotta honor the character and do that homework. So you did it.
Hmm.
You chiseled away. You did all the research, and then found that one little strand that you connected to, and you
Right.
said, "Okay, this is it. This is the story I can tell." That's awesome.
Right.
Oh, that's
Thank
that's
you.
so
Thank you.
cool. Did you pitch to them directly, or did how did that work?
So, I mean, to be honest with you, I've been after Zenescope for about 3 years. I think I've been chasing them,
Yeah.
and I was fortunate to be in contact with the editor in chief there, Dave Franchini, and we've been in contact for probably off and on, like for about 2 or 3 years, and so it got to a place where something opened up, an opportunity opened up, and he asked me if I wanted to pitch a story, and it wasn't this story. It was initially a few shorts, but then behind the shorts there was a Gretel story, a Dark Watchers Gretel story. Well, it's called Dark Watchers, but it was to it was to focus on the character of Gretel, and it was supposed to be a 72-page uh, one shot. And so I pitched the Gretel story, and it went through. They liked the pitch for it, and so they put me on the Gretel story, and I I guess I did okay. And so they said, "Hey, we got this Van Helsing story," and I'm like, "Van Helsing? Uh,
They dropped the
yeah,
bomb.
that's good. I'll take her, sure."
Yes.
So yeah, so that's how it went. Yeah.
And that goes to the whole, I guess, networking thing, right? Or at least reaching out,
Mhm.
making yourself available, making yourself known, because there's so many creators in this industry that it's hard to stand out, right? So reaching
Mm.
out to people and slowly keeping up with them, maybe
Mhm.
reaching out and saying, "Hey, this is my latest work. It's published elsewhere, or there's a short story I worked on. Just want to share it with you. Just want to keep." I guess your name, your storytelling, your style fresh in their mind, or at least as fresh as it
Right.
can be, and that goes a long way for something
Absolutely.
like that. Yeah, 3 years in the making, and you
Yeah.
did it, man. That's so cool. I love seeing people that I've been watching and admiring their work and their hustle, and
Oh, thanks,
people who
man.
stick with it. No doubt, no problem. People who
Same.
stuck with it
Same to
for
you,
so
bro.
long. Well, I appreciate
Same
it,
to
man.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Um,
Wretches. I mean, come on. I mean, yeah.
yeah, I
No
appreciate it, man.
doubt.
We did something good, and yeah, it's just you do the one thing, you rinse and repeat, right? You write
Mm-hmm.
another thing, you just keep doing it. I mean, I just love
Yeah.
storytelling, as I know you do. So it's just
Absolutely.
whether or not we make a dime or go broke doing it. I mean, I'm just trying to have fun and tell some stories.
Exactly, man. I mean, and that's what it comes down to. Is like we linked, like we link, making a living off of what we love, and that is, that's great. That's the thing to do, right? But at the end of the day, um, you want to do what you like, and you want to do what you love, and you want to be a part of what you enjoy, um and I think that's what you and I are doing, come hell or high water, whatever the saying is,
I
right?
know, I'm with
uh,
you. Yeah, yeah, I'm
but
with
yeah,
you.
it's about storytelling, and it's deeply rooted in me, the love of storytelling. So universe willing, I'm trying to keep it going as much as possible.
That's funny that you said that. It's rooted in you and it's rooted in me. And I feel like I try to think about where that comes from. I think different, maybe different movies or different things in our childhood kind of
Mhm.
mold that, I guess. So I remember,
Yeah.
and we actually just watched it. I put my kids onto the Never Ending Story the other day, and for
Oh
me,
wow.
I don't know if you remember, but for me, that was one of the that was a movie that I still can kind of. I don't know if I can put words to it, but I can feel. I can kind of remember the feeling of emotion from. I don't remember how old I was when I watched it, but I think the storytelling and the drama, the Atreyu's horse. I'm blanking on the name now. When it was sinking into the mud, I mean that kind of broke your heart as a kid. And you didn't know what that feeling was back then, but those little things. I mean, I feel like that molded the storytelling or planted the storytelling seed in me. There's some other ones, but that one in particular is one of the big ones. The never ending, the last unicorn. I don't know if you remember that cartoon.
Don't remember that one. No,
That
no,
was similar
no.
to like the Hobbit, that style, I guess, the
Hmm.
Hobbit
Okay.
cartoon from back in the day. But yeah, man, I don't know if you have any stories in particular you remember,
Oh yeah,
or
yes, yes.
movies,
Like
books.
several actually, but like I link my love for storytelling to my mom and I. Like from one of my earliest memories is watching soap operas with my mom, and to this day, I still love soap operas. And I actually, my undergrad, like I actually built, like, once I got past my freshman year, definitely into my junior year, I built my schedule around my soap opera.
Gotta catch 'em
Real, like,
live.
like seriously, like I really did. I'm like, okay, from 1 to 3 o'clock, I have to be free. So here's what has to take place. So like just watching with her, and there's definitely this thing where connecting with my mom, love my mom so much, nurturing, but like watching the stories, watching the characters, like it just resonated with me. I didn't have the words for it then, but I always go back to the human condition, and just how the transference of issues and things that have and experiences. Like I I felt the connection to those characters, and even though they didn't live the life I lived, I still kind of understood that that connection that exists between all of us, and you know that's what storytelling for me is about. And it just kind of just blossomed from there, from cartoons to comics to movies. um, I mean, even video games like with Legend of Zelda and Super Mario, how you're going through the story, and that was one of the best parts, like the story of the game. And it's like, man, that's my world. That's I honestly love it. There's a I remember in undergrad, um, there's one moment that it was like right after I decided to be an English major. It might have been, man, it might have been what helped me to really decide that. Um, loving basketball. I went to, it was weird. Like, I used to enjoy going to the movies by myself. Like, it was just like me time. Like, it was meditative. And I remember undergrad was a Sunday, loving basketball had come out. No one wanted to go hang, like, go see it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going on my own. I remember sitting there in the theater watching that movie, and I don't, it was just one of them things where it just hit you. And for me, that movie, at 20 years old or however I was, just hit me, and I'm like, yo, like this is what I want to do. I want to tell stories. And I remember when the movie ended, like I left and went to the Barnes and Noble. It might have been the Borders then, in Richmond, and I went and I found how to write screenplay book, and I just dove into it. I just from that point on, it was game over for me. I never looked back.
Wow, so that's the one. That's the
That's the
seed.
one.
Wow, that's so cool.
That's it right there.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. Do you remember? Was it the? I mean, I guess stories have all different elements, right?
Mhm.
Was it the? And I'm trying to pull. I feel like I see the movie in the back of my head, but I don't. I can't remember the story.
Yeah. It was just like this. It was a coming of age story,
Okay, that's what I was
and
trying to spit
yep.
out as I was mumbling through
Yeah,
my
just
thoughts.
based on basketball. No, it's all good. It's based on basketball, and I love basketball, and I'm a huge basketball fan, especially at that time. And but it wasn't the basketball that got me. I mean, the basketball was a vehicle, but what got me was just the coming of age story. It just what those two characters were going through, and how the writer and the director, the whole collaboration of that came to bring that film together, how they made it, and for some reason it spoke to me, and like it was like one of them things where I'm just like, yeah, like
That's it.
storytelling is where it's at.
Do you remember the first script you wrote? I'll say so. So when you went to school, did you go to school? You said you were an English major. Did you focus
Mhm.
on writing for film?
So I, I took playwriting. I took playwriting, so that's where it really began. So I took a Shakespeare class where because I love Shakespeare, where we analyzed and broke down Shakespeare. It was great, and so from there I didn't know where to go, and I was beginning to go into that writer mode, that writer aspect, and I remember there was I was with my advisor, and there was a playwriting class. I'm like, playwriting. I'm gonna try that. So the first thing that I would say I actually wrote was the playwriting class was so great. It was like we we were assigned to write a play, and it was supposed to be a one act play. It was supposed to be something short, and oh, it was the best thing ever. And I was just like, okay. So I remember sitting at my computer, and I just went for it, and it ended up being um, like a 60-page, like 2 act play. And I remember it was called uh, Full of Soul, and it touched on like, no, 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 I'm wrong. That was my second one. My first one was this thing called The Christian Family, and it was Christian without the H. I don't know why I did that even now, but I did. And it was just um, a look at a family dynamic and what that family believed in, and what one of the kids chose not to believe in. Uh, and I think that was like 30 pages. But my follow up was Full of Souls, which was a clone story actually. But and that was 60 pages. So yeah,
Was it a sci-fi type thing? You said you threw the clone comment in at the end, so I'm thinking
yeah,
playwright. Maybe there's one. It's all set in the house in one room, and then you throw
hmm
in. It was a clone. It's a clone story.
it was it was it was two settings, and it was basically man, I actually still have it. I still have it.
That's
The
awesome.
um the clone didn't know he was a clone, and it kind of went into a kind of religious aspect of, am I real or am I not real? Do I have a soul or do I not have a soul? And there was a lot of discrimination towards the clone because other people knew that it wasn't
Mm.
the real version, but he thought that he was a real version, and so it was like this pontification on like what is real. Um, yeah, so that was my second play. That was my second play, and so we all had to like do read throughs, and so everyone was bringing like these 4 or 5 page like read throughs, and so I came back my second time. It was 60 pages. They were like, uh, okay. And so we spent the whole class. We spent 2 classes actually
Oh,
reading
dedicated
through
to this.
this and just getting the feedback. It was phenomenal. Like it was, yeah, it was great.
You got to send that to me. I got to read that. It'll be
Yeah.
all private. It's all. I won't share it, but I want to check that out.
All
That
right.
sounds
Cool.
awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
But
Cool.
so after that, do you remember your first comic book script, and when was there a moment that turned you away from that focus and pushed you into comics?
So the interesting thing is, so when I got out of college, like towards the end of my collegiate career, being in college, I was sending out spec scripts to like, I almost got one through too. Um, just trying to get into Hollywood.
Trying to do it,
And
yeah.
what I ended up doing was I created a small theater company, and like for about 3 years, maybe 2 or 3 years, we um, did like regional plays,
Oh man,
like we like I wrote, directed, and produced the plays. We did like 3 of them. Um, and I mean, they did well. I made some money. Got out there, et cetera, et cetera. Um, Great reviews. And then I got married, had kids, and even through all that, I was teaching. So like that was my day job. So life happened, and so I ended up
as
like
it tends to do.
it does, it does. And some people really believe that it gets in the way, and at the moment it might feel like it gets in the way to a certain degree, but it's actually there to better you and for you to get perspective and to balance you. And what ended up happening was, I wrote a couple self published novels. I kept writing, but it was more of a not push outward thing, but more look inward thing. And then in 2012, I remember, to be honest, like watching The Walking Dead, when it like the first season that came out, and I'm like, oh, like I loved the first season, and so like before then, I didn't know that it was a comic, and my childhood and my younger years, I was heavily into comics, trading cards, all of that, and I'm just like, yo, whatever happened to all of that, like man, like I love that stuff, and this epiphany, like, yo, what am I doing? So I just dove back in, 100% just dove back in, and kind of rediscovered myself, this part of myself that had been there, that over time had just waned, um, and I I began reading. And so I said to myself, like, man, like I wonder if I could write one of these. This is so great. Like I was back in that world, but I wasn't a child anymore. I was grown, but I had this childlike feeling about it. But I had all this maturity about how to like perceive. And I'm just like, whoa, why not write a comic, Brian? That's it. Like you found like I remember saying like you found yourself here. Go for it.
I can just
So I
picture that
began
creative
to
seed. That creative
yeah.
seed just started. It remembered
Oh man.
itself.
That's what it did. That's exactly what it
That's
did. Well
beautiful.
said. And yeah, that's what happened. And I just researched how to, and um, really dug into the craft of it. And I've been exploring and learning ever since, and still learning.
Do you remember the first script you wrote? And did you
Yes.
see it? Did you make it?
The first script that I ever wrote was Oh man, this is nostalgia right here. I
Oh, I
love
love
it.
that question. I've been asking
Yeah,
people that question because, I mean, for me, it was just it was way too long. It was a graphic novel. The pacing, like everything, the idea was good, but the execution was bad. And I ended up
right.
the artist. I lost track of the artist. He fled the coop. I lost some money, and I ended up printing. I printed it somewhere in my closet. It's probably an unfinished 100 page. I printed it through was it Kablam or Kaboom, the overnight printer. Oh, I forget the name of it, but I printed it through them. I still have it. It was a disaster. So when I ask people if they remember and if they made their first script, everyone has a similar, at least so far, they've had a similar
Oh
reaction. It's
man,
either embarrassed chuckles, things like that.
I I do have I actually have the first copy of it. My first, believe it or not, my first comic was America's Kingdom. Believe it or not, but America's Kingdom ended up taking so many forms, and if you look at the first form of it that I did, um, wow, it's so different now. But it was an earlier version of America's Kingdom, and we got through one. We actually got through one issue of it. Um, and I remember, it was just not really knowing how to go about it. It kind of fell off, and then I began something else. But then I came back to America's Kingdom again. Um, yeah, man. Like I actually have it was America's Kingdom, and then behind that, I did a comic called I Am Michael Watcher. Um, and yeah, it was wow. Like I have those. I have the physical copies of those,
That's dope.
along with the spec scripts that I did, like just stored.
You have
It's,
to keep
yeah,
those. Yeah,
you
dude, I
have
have so
to.
many. I
You
might
have.
have a whole binder filled with this job that I had back in around 2007 or 8. I mean, I used to sit there at the desk and as on post-it notes, just write little. I might be listening to podcasts, and if it's
Mhm.
maybe a science-driven podcast, if they're talking about black holes or panspermia, which is the theory that Earth was seeded through space, so maybe
Mm.
some type of life was on an asteroid, it hit Earth millennia ago, that led to the sprouting of whatever life in the oceans, which led to evolution. So little things
Okay.
like that, whether or not that could be all nonsense, but hearing that, I would sit there and things like whatever I would hear, I would jot down little post-it notes and little index cards or a piece of paper and rip them and leave them in my desk, and I ended up saving every single one of them. So I
Oh,
have
that's
probably a
awesome.
hundred nonsensical just ideas from back then that I
Yeah.
definitely I would like to on this YouTube channel maybe come up with a little segment or my own solo thing where I just pick. I'll sit here and just pick five out of there and spend like 10
Yeah.
minutes just reading them and discussing how crazy or how maybe
I
there's
think that's
a hidden
cool.
brilliance in there. But just
I
going
think
to
you
your
should do
point,
that.
saving those
Yeah.
things, I think I have to, but actually I think I'm going to. I act like I'm not planning on it. I had a logo made. It was called the Idea Box, and the
Uh,
I was a light bulb, but a broken light bulb.
oh,
And then like
nice.
the X was like it was blended with a green check and then a red X. So either good idea or bad idea in the idea box. So I'll pick it out and just make
Oh, that's
make
cool.
some content out of it.
I like that idea. That's
It's
great.
pretty
I
good, right?
love
But
it.
going to your
Yeah.
point, it's saving this old stuff that we've done
Yeah.
and looking back on it and seeing the growth. Because I mean, I'm
Hmm.
sure you go look at the first issue of America's Kingdom and then the other your other spec scripts and everything, and the same as me, that old graphic novel that I never finished, and pull or find goodness out of it, or be able to point to some ideas and say, you know what, maybe
Yeah.
I didn't execute it, but there's something in there, and that just
Yeah.
set us on the path.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is well said. Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Thank you,
That's
man.
it. Yeah, man. I
um,
love that idea though. Please do it. You have to do it. That's
I
great.
I
I will
will,
watch
man.
it
I will,
100%.
and I'll bring you on to we'll do a dual idea chest, or we'll pull out, or you'll
Oh,
read some of your spec script
that'd
and
be cool.
just find the worst paragraph out of it, or at least something we could, you know,
I'm down.
in
I'm so
fun,
down
yeah,
for
make something silly out of it.
that. That's cool. I'm so
do
down.
you,
Yes.
did anything in your, I guess in your comics career, did something ring out to you as a quote unquote like a breaking in moment?
Oh man, a breaking in moment. You know, man, the breaking in term is hard for me because like it's because I still feel this like this hustle, this
Yeah.
like I'm trying to but there was a very cool moment that kind of was a like a, oh man, like kind of moment was Joseph Illich. We connected on LinkedIn and he knew who I was. He was
Yeah.
like, and he was like, um, congratulations, on what you're doing on your side of the industry over there. He was talking about me. He was talking about the editorial work that I was doing with Mad Cave, and I thought that was really cool. That Joseph Illich like knew who I was. And I'm like, huh, well that's interesting. And I don't know if that's a breaking in moment, but it was a moment I where I was just aware that someone else was aware of me, and it's just like, huh, that's different. Okay.
Well, that'll
But I
that'll
felt, I was humbled by it, of course, and it, just a different moment for me.
yeah, no, and moments like that will give you a push, right, or a drive to keep going. See, that breaking in
Absolutely.
question or that breaking in idea, I think is funny. I think I've said it a few times on here, but I think we as creators set our own bar for what breaking in means. So
Hmm.
I think at one point for me, it was like, let's just have this successful Kickstarter campaign complete. I'll print out books, self-publish, ship it out, and I mean, I don't think I necessarily thought of it as breaking in. I don't know
Hmm.
what that is for me. I don't know if that's a bar I have. I just want to continue like doing stuff and telling stories. But a moment similar
Right.
to yours, I remember when my first short story was going to be published in an anthology, and this might have been, yeah, see, you know those feelings, right?
Uh
Because
huh.
I
Yeah.
think it might have been maybe 2016 or 2015 or 2014. I'm going backwards, but it was one of the first short stories I did. It's okay. It's another one that I could look at and see, there's a few good things, but a sci-fi anthology. I think it was Alterna actually. Alterna published their If
Okay.
anthology back then,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the sci-fi might have been their first one, but they picked it up. And to me, I was like, wow, shit, this is yes, okay, cool. And it just lit something that inside of me
Yeah.
that maybe if that didn't happen, maybe I wouldn't have continued networking and
Hmm.
getting on social media and talking and meeting other creators. Maybe I would have, and maybe it would have slowly faded away. I mean, who knows? But that kind
Right.
of
Right.
lit something and kept me going. So yeah, those moments, I think, like you mentioned, when Joe Idlich reached out to you and just what you're doing is being noticed and being noticed from somebody at that level, it's got to
Right.
be
Right.
like, ah, oh, it's got to get,
Right.
it'll set you up for the next couple of years.
Yeah. It's definitely a boost, and one of the things that I kind of attached on to, um, just in terms of just like living life and moving forward, was like try to get more wins than losses. Like you're going to get your losses, but you move forward and you try to get a win, and it's not about winning everything. It's about like incrementally, like you know, get those wins, those the ways that shows that you're growing, and see what comes from it. Like you cannot. Um, I'm a firm believer. I came across this a few years ago in like this idea of dukkha, and that human suffering stems from it stems from us, like our wants, our desires, our expectations, and so it's been a steady process of kind of stripping down my expectations, and my wants and my desires of myself and others. Like, yeah, I have goals. There's things that I want, but like there's a difference between wanting to move forward and like wanting something to where if you don't get that, messes up your life. And so there's nothing in any of this where if I don't reach a place, like I I lose purpose or something. Like my I don't link my purpose in life uh to to reaching a certain goal. I just want to, be the best version of who I am in what I'm doing at the moment. And I honestly do try my hardest to like live my life like that. Um, so yeah, so it's like, okay, what's the next step? What's the next potential win? And I don't think there's ever going to be a win where I'm just like, oh, I've won it
Right.
because
You're chasing, yeah, you're
because
chasing nothing. You're chasing your tail at that point.
exactly,
Right,
exactly.
right.
We're
I try to look at
yeah.
it that way as well. Like every little, or either set small goals or just set things that I want to complete and then complete the next one. And it's a ladder, right? You just
Mm-hmm.
consistently do it. And if you put in that 10,000 hours or whatever the equation is to becoming, and then you actually know what you're doing or you're actually good at it, then maybe, who knows, maybe at that point, we'll take over the world. I don't know.
Who
is that a
knows?
is
Who
that a
knows?
Buddhist term, dukkha? It
Yes,
sounded
yes.
okay. I was gonna say,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've
Yeah,
heard it before, and then your
yeah.
explanation was spot on. It was definitely, I could definitely relate to that, and I try to do that. That's something that, it's much easier said than done. But to strive
100%.
to strive for something like that, that was well put.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Do you have a process when you write? So I say,
Uh,
so if you have the seed, so if you have a new idea now for maybe a new story, where do you start?
um, Notebooks. Like I have have notebooks like on my desk, like surrounding me. I start with like jotting it down, and then like just loose stuff, raw stuff. From there, I might create a folder and like make it official, and it's in like the drop in like a Dropbox or it's in a Google Doc, so I can go back to it.
With a mock
But like
title or whatever, a loose title. Yep.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's there, so I can find it. And then, but like if I am like working on a story, it really is about um, like the initial overview of what the story is, like how I sum it up in a very short way. Then let me expand it out some. From there, I'm doing characters. Like maybe some dialogue might come to mind. I'll write down the dialogue. Just set up like a scene. But when I'm really getting into like that moment before scripting, it's an outline. It's an outline, and it could be very loose, or it could be like more. It could be tighter. It just depends on what the story is, and I kind of have a like a game plan with the outline, and from the outline, I then uh, jump into the script. There was a few months where I went to like a three tier outline process that was based off of what Cullen Bunn. He had a blog where he like broke down his outline process, and I just tried it out. I thought, okay, well, let me see what this is about, and it was phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, it was phenomenal, and I still kind of take some of what I took, like some of what I read from him and experienced myself with it and applied it to how I now outline. But I definitely believe in outlining before scripting,
Yeah.
at
No,
least for me.
I'm the same way. I think as you're talking, I'm looking. You mentioned notebooks everywhere. Like I'm looking at the notebooks and little
Yeah.
post-its and index cards popping out of them. I'll do the same thing, man. I will jot down any random idea that comes to mind. I'll try to keep it in one book if I'm lucky, but it'll be all over the place.
Yeah.
And that's my brainstorming phase. And then when I'm ready to commit and like actually, if I think it's a story worth telling, then I'll break down and I'll write an outline. And it'll be kind of I'll try to do it like prose form. It'll essentially be a short
Okay.
story. If I'm lucky, it'll be in order, but it won't always be in order. It might be, I'll bracket off, or I'll put a big parenthesis over a paragraph or page,
Uh-huh.
arrows pointing it back to the beginning. Like it'll just be very loose. And then if I can, when it's kind of when I've hammered away at that steel to where it's kind of getting somewhere, then I will either write it out consecutively, or I'll type it up. And
Okay.
when I type it up, it's like it's becoming official now because it's on
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
that's the product of the brainstorming random notes for however long I've done it, months, if not maybe a year or so. And it'll when it's a full-fledged completed typed up maybe several page outline, which is my little short story, then I'm like, all right, now I know I'm in for it. Now I'm going to try and pitch this and find an artist
Yeah.
and work on it and crack into the script. But well, yeah, once I type up the outline, it's we're full steam ahead.
Game on. It's game
Game
on.
on, yeah. So that's cool, man. I feel like a lot of creators have a very similar process. Some
Yeah.
outlines might be, and I've only just started to get into the typed outline because I feel like
Hmm.
that acts for me. It acts like a third, fourth, fifth draft, I guess, after the handwritten part. So I'll type it up, and
Hmm.
then I'll print it out, and then I'll go through it again, mark it up, and then I'll clean it up on the Word doc, and then I'll have it.
Yeah.
So I would have gone through multiple passes, multiple connecting the dots, and working on callbacks and other things that I want to get into. The actual storytelling, the meat of it. So I found lately that typing part definitely helps, and I could see it helping going forward. But I mean, in the past, it just I might have just flown by the seat of my pants and just jumped right to the script. If it's a short
I,
story,
yeah.
there's no way. I don't think there's no way to do it. It's whatever works for us.
I, I would have to agree. Like, I approach excuse me. I approach creator own things sometimes I would say differently from like work for hire things. And it depends. Like it depends on how comfortable you're with it. And I think that's what it is. Like, if you're more comfortable with something, because it's kind of like yours, then you might go about it a different way. But if it's not yours, then you're like, okay, well, let me kind of standardize this. Let me, go about this way. But then, there are some some instances where, it's not mine, and but just based off of the feel of the story and what I'm like, or what I'm trying to catch. Like, I think that's the best word for it. Like, I always feel like, when it's not my story, not my IP, you know, I need to catch the wave. Like, I need to catch what it is. And there's different ways to catch it. And I don't really limit myself on, like, well, here's how I normally do it. So I'm just going to always do it this way. I try to feel what the story needs and how it wants me to catch it, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It's a good way to put it. I think it circles back to what you were talking about before, trying to find that one strand in the existing narrative that you can really relate to and that you can crush it when it comes to telling that type of story. And I like the way you said, what did you say, catching the wave. So you're sitting there
Yeah.
waiting, 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 and now your opportunity comes by, and the narrative that you can really like take on and own, and then you jump on the wave and you catch the wave.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
said, man. I like that.
Cool.
Oh man,
Cool.
what would you, man? About 45 minutes in, this is good, man. I like this.
Cool.
It's a good
Cool. I'm
conversation.
enjoying
So yeah, if what's like I guess the biggest piece of advice you would give a new writer?
it. Don't try to crank. Don't try to crank it out. Like when I was younger, for sure. Like I would just write for hours. Like I'm going way at. I'm crushing this thing. Right. Um, but now, like I really like don't crank it out. Take your time. You know, feel the pulse of the story. Know the characters. Hear their voices. you know, you have to do that so that you're not, the writer speaking in the story. You want the characters to speak. And for me, like I I now section off like how I write scripts. Like if I'm working on a script, like I'll set like maybe like 1 to 5 pages, or 1 to 10 pages, and then I leave it alone, and I walk away from it, and I do something else. I live life. I go about my business, because what I've learned is my creativity isn't happening while I'm writing. My creativity is happening while my mind is resting, while my mind is doing something else, while my mind is being inspired by life, whatever my life is, and whatever I'm interacting with. So my advice would be, don't be afraid. Well, one, don't crank anything out. Don't be afraid to go through a process and figure out what your process is, and and develop it. You don't have to be a prolific or good or decent or great writer. You don't have to be cranking stuff out. It's about the time spent, knowing the craft, and really becoming intimate with the story.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
That was well said. I don't think I've heard that. Or I don't think I've heard it put that way. That the creativity is percolating when you're when you're taking those breaks. That's well said. Because I'll do something very great advice,
Cool.
very similar. Or I guess I won't sit there and bang it out. Right. I'll if I am in the zone writing, I'll try. Maybe I'll try and finish the scene, and the scene might only be a few pages, like you said, 5 to 10 pages. Usually less, maybe 5-ish. But I'll try and finish that, if anything. Like and I'll struggle sometimes to hit that end, hit that scene. If it's a few pages more, I'll push myself a little bit to just get the first draft down. And because it's kind of fresh, I need to finish that scene. But I won't. I usually don't consecutively, especially in the script phase. I don't like to sit there and then move on to another scene in the issue or in the chapter, because I think, to your point, life is happening all around us, and while I'm in here and I'm in the zone, we do need breaks from it, and those breaks, I'm still as I'm talking, I'm thinking about what you said. Those breaks are when the creativity happens, because I could feel burnt if I am sitting and pushing myself to really finish something. I'll feel burnt out a lot quicker than normal. So getting away, getting off either the computer or away from the notepad, and getting out and maybe going to the garden, doing some work in the backyard, or doing some housework that my wife has queued up for me, or things that I have to get to. That stuff, or even going for a walk, or a bike ride. Oh, I hear you.
Is this me or you?
I hear you. Let me see. Can you hear me? Uh-oh.
Yeah, you froze for a second.
Okay.
And you were saying some good stuff too.
Oh, damn. You can edit this whole thing. I'm turning this off. I had to check my my Ethernet cable sometimes comes out, but it's in there.
You left off on going to the garden.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, so I have I live in New Jersey, so I have a little bit of I have a nice bit of space in the backyard, so enough to where if it's the season, I can go out and just getting in the backyard, or doing yard work, especially, like maybe not barefoot, but getting in the dirt with my hands, like just things that are not writing. Going for a walk, or even exercise, which I do much more frequently, infrequently, excuse me, than I would like. But just to your point, getting away from the writing and the social media and the business, like getting away from all that. I think you're right. I think that energizes you, because if you sat here and just wrote, type, Facebook, Instagram, this is what I'm working on now, whatever you're doing, that really, that drains you. So getting out and doing things that you enjoy, or doing things that require you to focus on that activity. Like, so the
Mm-hmm.
gardening, or
Yep.
I'm actually looking forward to, in a week or so, we started indoors. We planted little, tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, like
Oh,
in the
cool.
house. I had the
That's
kids
cool.
doing it, so we have it growing inside. So I'm looking forward to getting in the backyard, and I have a little plot, 10 by uh, 3 or 4, little rectangle, but just getting in
That's
there with the shovel and maybe spending 2 hours tilling it up, mixing some fertilizer.
nice.
Because when you're doing that, at least when I'm doing that, that's all I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
It's you're just the phone's away. I might have music
Yep.
on in the background, but the industry and the writing, like that stuff, is on the back burner, and
Yeah.
you get so much out of just doing something, and it doesn't have to be gardening, but getting away and doing something completely different. Like I was saying, housework, chores that my wife has queued up, fix this, things that I've been letting sit in the back burner. But
Oh, I
man,
know.
that was well said. I
I,
feel
I
that.
I appreciate it, man. I mean, I like how you said it, and that's yeah. I mean, I feel like we're on the same page with that, and yeah, it's good stuff, man. It's you saying what you said just reaffirms for me, like my experiences. So it just only emboldens, like yeah, that's.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about tomorrow. I'm thinking like, okay, I can't wait for my break tomorrow where I'm gonna go. Yeah, so like we went for a walk, like me and my 3 kids, like we just I tried to finish up at a certain time, and we just walked around the block and we talked. The youngest rode her scooter, and it's no riding, it's no anything. It's just this is life, just living life.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we try
yeah,
and do that in the front yard. We live on a not too busy street, and it's wide enough, and it was paved like within the year, so it's nice paved street. So we'll get out there with the kids. They'll ride their bikes back and forth. But we have a longboard in the garage, and I didn't grow up skateboarding or
mm,
longboarding at all. And so I tried and I tried. I never fell, but I eventually I'm able to coast on a longboard. I don't know if you've ever ridden one, but
no,
just getting out there, and longboards turn a little bit more slowly than a skateboard, and they have these thick
uh,
rubber wheels on them, and it's like you're just surfing on the street and you're just gliding. And I've never put myself to a risk where I'm going to bust my butt, but the the zenning out that happens when you're doing that, like we were out there the other day and the neighbors were out there and the kids are riding their bikes and they have their chairs just sitting like on the sidewalk watching everybody in the street, and I probably was out there for 2 hours going back and forth, but it's only 2 houses down, 2 houses down, 2 houses down, 2 houses down.
oh,
But
that's
the
great.
zenning out and getting away from the repetitiveness
Yo,
of work and being stuck in here.
I'm writing that down. I'm going to buy a longboard.
Do it, man. Do it. My
Plant,
wife,
my,
she got hers. The one that we have was from a job. Like it's a beer company's longboard. But if you have a decent street, I mean, that thing could handle
yeah,
pebbles. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yo, I am writing it down. I'm going to buy one. You had
Wear a
given me
helmet
a
because I don't want
summer
to be, I don't want to be responsible.
helmet. No, I'm going to.
Extreme. But
Uh,
man, if you're, yeah, I just didn't grow up with anything like that, so I don't know. I
yeah,
just said, you know what? Let me try it because it seems fun whenever I see people doing it.
yeah,
And
that's
yeah, you
awesome.
just a few pushes, you learn how to balance. But the longboard is easy to control. It's like driving. It's
Okay,
like, I guess it's like a boat compared to a little speed
yeah,
racer.
I am on it. You
Do
have
it, man.
excited me. I've written it down. I'm going to buy one. That's my summer thing. That's gonna be my summer thing. I am going to because I told the kids that I would get them like a motorized scooter. So I'm like, man, now I'm gonna get myself a longboard. And while they're on their scooter, I'm gonna be longboarding.
And you're gonna laugh because in doing it, and I did it for a while, probably too long, but in doing it for that hour and a half, the next day or so, you could feel it. You feel it a little bit in the core, but the legs and my calves,
Mhm.
because it's all down there. The
Yeah,
whole, I look like an expert, right? The whole motion, the whole,
yeah,
but I felt it, man.
you did.
So it was a little bit of a workout, which I'm
All
embarrassed to
right.
say, but
Hey, we have to get our workouts any way we can. Stay
anyway,
active.
Yeah, and doing that alongside the kids while they're on their little get ups, that's a good way to go. I think the company, and I think I'm saving up to buy, because I bought my daughter, and actually I think it's called Land Yacht is the company, the skateboard company.
Okay.
And from what I've looked at, because I did a little bit of research, they're a quality, you know, from the videos I watched, they don't recommend going to Amazon. Amazon uses cheap parts, but
Okay.
if you check out what they've got to offer, I think they're the good entry level quality purchase. So
Okay.
yeah,
I wrote it down.
two guys who've
Wrote it
never
down.
who don't board at all, giving out boarding advice, baby.
Hey, I'm going for it.
Got to start somewhere.
You have to. I'm excited about it too.
Good man,
I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
dude. um, dude, this has been fun. But please, what is on the horizon? What do you have in the pipeline?
Oh, pipeline,
If
pipeline.
you could
Yes.
even talk about, I mean, I'm sure you got some stuff working,
Yes, no,
percolating.
this has truly been fun, man. I mean, it's been a great conversation. And I thank you for it.
Thank you, man.
So,
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely. Pipeline. So we have Black Cotton. Issues 2 through 6 will be out between May and September. Um, I have Devil's Dominion with Black Box. Issues 3 were supposed to drop this week, but Diamond, I guess next week. But issue 4 and issue 5 will come out in May and June, and that will wrap up the first volume of that series. And so, pretty much that wraps up like my known slate. I'm working on a couple other creator-owned things that in the next few months will probably announce or put out into the universe, and doing have some more things that's supposed to be coming out with Zenescope that in the next couple months will also be kind of put into the universe as well, and still editing for Mad Cave. I was fortunate to be put on three volume twos that they're going to let out in the fall going into 2022. So there's some amazing creative teams that I'm getting a chance to link with and work with and read their scripts and see their art that just always amazes me. So that's about it.
Well, Brian Hawkins, man, I appreciate it. I admire the work ethic, the hustle. You've been doing it for years. Things are coming to fruition. I'm happy for you.
I
Where
appreciate it.
can people find you? Social media, website?
Yeah, so website is brianhawkinswrites.com. Social media is Brian Hawkins Writes, IG, Brian L. Hawkins, Twitter, Brian Hawkins Writes,
You got
Facebook.
to unify those things, man. Yeah, you got to bring them together.
Yeah,
I don't know
gotta
how you
figure out a
remember all
way.
of it.
Yeah. So the funny thing about that is so I began to just use Brian Hawkins Writes, but I just can't get my Twitter.
Ah,
My Twitter is stuck, Brian L. Hawkins. So I'm just like, oh well.
well, I did the
So,
same
but
similar thing. Trying to think like how to unify my brand or the website, like link it all. So that's why I use my middle initial. The only reason
right,
why I put the E, James E. Roach. The only reason, not to be pretentious, it's to unify the social media. So it's
right on.
all my website and everything. So I just found that useful, and I bit the bullet and said, you know what? I'll throw the initial in there. Let them laugh.
Well, see, now I had to ask what the E stands for now. See,
And goodbye, everybody. Thanks for joining.
the end. It stands for the end.